Barbara. First of all, thank you again for the opportunity to get to interview you and share your story with our audience. But I want to start with a very simple question. Um, because in your email to me, you said that your automotive career didn't start with a plan. But with curiosity. So I'd love for you to walk us through that moment that really awakened you to what was going on.
Yeah, well, thank you. Great question. It was very simple. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City. Fashion design. My parents were entrepreneurs, immigrants, and were in the embroidery business. So working with my family as a young girl, was very interested in textiles, loved fashion design, all that. Wasn't sure if going that route was really going to be of interest for me, but I went and right after college, had a position as an executive assistant to get my foot into the door with Richard Marcus, the Richard Marcus from Neiman Marcus.
Amazing.
And yeah, it was a great opportunity, excellent experience to really be with the leadership team and really understanding the hierarchy within corporate America, within retail. But as you know, just going through back then, newspapers, an ad in the paper caught my attention, and it was a customer service center representative role for a Detroit-based auto group. I mean, Detroit-based um, company. It wasn't an auto group, a company based in, but the offices were in New Jersey, something to that effect. And I was like, Detroit, New Jersey, this is interesting. It had to be one of the big threes. Let's see what's going on.
Hmm.
So, what really struck me as I was just going for a whim and following my gut, when I got to the parking lot, I don't know if you know New Jersey, but New Jersey, northern New Jersey has the Ramapo Mountains. It's beautiful scenery. Um, it just spoke to me. As soon as I parked the car, I was like, I need to land this position. It was Jaguar Cars North America at the time, before even Land Rover joined the organization, the OEM. And it just, it led me to where I am today. And it was just following an intuition. I'm very keen with my intuition, with my gut, and it called to me from that moment on. And I was extremely fortunate to just get my foot in the door and take me through this automotive incredible journey that it is. Yeah.
It's amazing. I love hearing all the different stories it's funny because like you said, it was just a simple newspaper ad, right?
Very
And it was
simple
for
back in the
customer
day.
service for a call center?
Call center, customer service rep. Yeah, Detroit
Wow.
based New Jersey office. I was like, this is interesting. And that was Ford Motor Company. Yeah, Ford Motor Company owned it at the time. So it took
How
me,
amazing.
yeah, it was great. It was great. But yeah.
And so your career has spanned OEMs. I mean, it started with OEMs, dealer groups, startup, executive leadership, fashion, and it hasn't been linear. How has experiencing all of those different seasons shaped the leader you've become?
Yeah. Well, this wasn't a plan by design. It was maybe divine intervention. It was God's plan. I'm spiritual, and I believe that there's a plan out there for all of us.
Hmm.
And whether, when I spent my tenure, I was at JLR North America. It was Jaguar Cars, Land Rover joined. I was there for 10, 12 years. Unbeknownst to me, had incredible mentors, really placing me in different positions within the company, that broadened my experience when I was within the OEM. And that was an incredible opportunity. Was a field rep for after sales market manager, dabbled as a sales market manager, was a warranty auditor, went back and ran the call center. So it really opened doors for me, especially seeing what the critical relationship between the OEM and the retailer groups, that needs to be two ways. You can't have one without another. It's something that stems from, you need to empower the front line, support the front line, be it whether it's the OEM or the dealers. And having those field roles, those factory rep roles, really opened my eyes to dealership world, to retailer groups, the value and the importance that it is to have those critical relationships with your customers, how you build retention, how you build owner loyalty, fixed operations to be the profit engine that it is. This all started back then. But then, I removed I had to, I had, was a mom, had my second child, very demanding when you start climbing the corporate ladder. So
Mhm.
I took a break from the industry. It was one of the most difficult decisions I had to do. But it was the best thing for my kids. So when I went back into the industry, full transparency, that's the way I roll. I love to be completely transparent. Very messy divorce, went back to work. I couldn't go back to North Jersey. I was living in Central Jersey at the time. I said, okay, what do I need to get back into this industry that I love, that was been so good for me. But the only thing I could do right now is go into retail. So I contacted one of my mentors and contacts in at JLR. I said, who do we know at Jaguar Monmouth? He gave me the contact person, and that's where I got that $15 an hour job as a receptionist to get my foot back into the door. So I missed, in my mind, I said, okay, I'm here. There's a 10-year gap from when I left JLR North America to when I'm going back into the industry. I need to catch up. I need to figure out how quickly can I get back into everything that I missed in that gap of where the industry is today. So
Mm.
of course, I have the experience, I have the drive, the determination, the tenacity. I needed to get back into that world that I loved. So I started positioning myself in different positions. Thankfully, I had the experience and the work ethic to back it up. So that led me to customer service manager. Then I went to Warren Henry Auto Group and was a director of service and customer service operations. So it was a very quick progression into different leadership roles because of my experience.
Mhm.
But it wasn't really by design. It was something that um, it happened. It was a bridge to another position that then led me to where I am today, little by little.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that because that was one of the things that you had said to me about is that starting over as a receptionist wasn't a failure, but it was that bridge for you. And so, what helped you hold on to that bridge perspective when others might have seen it very differently, like a step back or failure?
It's funny because receptionists, I see them as a director of first impressions. So when you sit in that role, especially when it's a it's when it's a rooftop, one receptionist that really supports sales and service. It's such a critical function because you see it all, and you
Mhm.
interact with sales, you interact with parts, you interact with service, you interact with every single critical point of the business. Um, I am somewhat of an introvert by design, which I think it's my superpower because I'm able to sit back and assess, look at everything. So I really needed to immerse myself, and I continue to live by that design. I believe you wake up in a one-on-one mindset, no matter how many years you're in an industry. It's so important to continue to feed your brain and want to learn more and want to grow more. So in those roles, especially, I was a receptionist only for 3 months because they saw quickly on that I could be supporting in another role. But I took that as, okay, I want to learn this. I can see exactly what this business is about. I saw, the pre-owned, the used car business. I saw, the sales, how they would interact, service, how they would interact. This is my first experience now really working within a dealership. I supported dealers when I was an after sales market manager and field rep at JLR, but not really boots on ground at the dealer. So I
Mhm.
took those opportunities as 100% learning opportunities to see exactly how can I really deep dive into the world of retailers, of dealerships, how they develop relationships with the customers, how you have generations of customers and families coming back, grandparents. children, like how that incredible the retention is based on, and how the industry has thrived for so many years based on that, those critical relationships that are so important, community outreaches, community ties, everything that we have in our dealers. And that's why it's an interesting world, and it's an exciting world, and not every day is the same. um, but from being someone who loves to learn and loves to lead and loves to really plant seeds, and know that I'm doing something for a reason, it was an incredible opportunity, and it still is. I'm still learning.
Right? As long as we're learning, we're growing, right?
You need to continue to fuel your brain. I've come across a lot of managers and a lot of leaders who, you know, just because they're a leader doesn't mean they're a good leader, but cannot get out of their head. It's like you need to fuel, and you need to continue to grow and evolve, because you're just not going to be able to keep up. And it's so important, regardless what you're doing in life. It's just
Right?
evolve. Hmm.
You never want to be one of those people who say, this is how we've always done it.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And if you're going to be one of those people, then there's another role for you, or there's someplace else that you can maybe tap in. And I don't want to discredit those individuals who have been doing something for so many years and have become masters of their trade, of their craft.
Mhm.
um but in an industry that is constantly being disrupted, that's constantly changing, it's important to keep up. And you have to
Absolutely.
keep up with the technology, you have to keep up with the platforms, and it's making your life easier. I had a manager that I worked with not too long ago that refused to believe in data. I was like, the data is going to make your life so much easier. You need to embrace that world, because it's going to help you, to support you, and it's going to give you such an easier viewpoint of where your areas of opportunity may be. So
Right.
yeah, so we need to grow with the times.
Absolutely. And you said the masters of the craft have been doing it for so long. I've never met a master who isn't a constant student.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, absolutely.
Yeah, but they're out there, the ones that aren't. But yeah, it's our job to kind of keep on poking the bear and say, come on, let's get with it.
Absolutely. So, what I want to go back to, because you've led across so many different operations, as you mentioned, service, customer experience, even as a COO. And so I would love to hear from you. What do you believe truly makes teams thrive, especially in that high pressure environment?
Great question. Teams, I think, are, there's, of course, you have culture. But I think empowering individuals,
Mhm.
supporting them, giving the tools that they need to be successful in their role, trusting them. You hired them for a reason. You're keeping them on payroll for a reason. Trust them to be your eyes and ears.
Mhm.
Um, but there's also a flip side to that of supporting poor behavior, not holding poor individuals accountable for their what they're responsible for. So I think, it's all people driven. We're servant leaders. You need to have the right people in the right positions. And if it's not working, you need to have those hard conversations. But we need to be able to give people the tools that they need to be successful in their role, be it training, be it processes, be it support, taking a step back and really being open to different people's perspectives. We spoke about being a student at all times. Just because I've been doing this for 30 plus years doesn't mean by all means that I have all the answers. No, I want to surround myself with like minded individuals. We have a goal, we have a strategy that we need to execute. But just because plan A didn't work and we need to pivot to plan B doesn't mean that we need to change how we're getting there. We need to change how to get there. It doesn't mean it failed. So it's important that, we surround ourselves with the right talent and the right people, and continue to just build and develop. I believe in athletes and teams, from a sports mentality. I'm a runner, so it's slow and steady wins the race. You have to train daily. You have to be committed. You have to
Mhm.
get out of your head sometimes. Yeah, you have to really muddle through what's uncomfortable in order to be successful. And that mentality, whether it's a customer centric mentality, whether it's a goal oriented mentality, that really permeates from the top down. You need to have that mentality throughout your organization. But if your leaders aren't walking the walk and talking the talk, it's not going to happen. And if your team sees that you're slacking off or not holding low performing individuals accountable, your credibility is going to crumble. So it really,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a team effort, but you need to just walk by example and lead by example by all means.
Absolutely. And you've said so many great things that I'm like trying to ping pong back and forth between all the different directions we could go with this. But I would love to hear about how your lived experience has influenced how you develop people, particularly women, when they're navigating these complexities about their career.
Yeah. I'm so grateful you all have this organization, because I think it's so important that we continue to empower women and help women, mentor. That's where I'm at the stage in my life where I want to make sure that my legacy is left, as someone who has planted seeds. I stand on great shoulders, be it my grandmother, my mother, all those that came before me, mentors within the industry early on. Terry Nelson, she was my manager at Jaguar North America, sat with me many times and really helped and developed me. But I also had incredible men mentors as well: Gary Temple, Jerry McGeorge, Mike Dale, the president of the time. He was instrumental in developing who I was. Um, what drives me crazy, and I try to change this every time I meet a woman in the industry, is that being the male dominated industry it is, and has been historically, I was never threatened or not felt supported by the men. But sometimes you come across catty women who aren't, girls, and they're not supporting you and they're not helping you. And I'm like, come on, ladies, like, why is this happening? We're here supposed to rally each other and help each other and lift each other up. So, when I come across those individuals, I try to really tap into them and develop groups around those. And the ones that I see that are not really, joining us, I try to humanize them and say, okay, something's going
Mhm.
on with you. What happened to you? What led you to where you are today, that you're not being part of this woman camaraderie that we so desperately need? So that,
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's where, my mom hat comes in, and I start becoming a mama bear, and I try to figure out, all right, let's go to lunch, let's go to walk, let's, go for a walk, let's develop book clubs that are just women based, and try to really come together from that perspective, and that from that, that
Mhm.
area, to kind of continue to develop. But it's a very interesting dynamic, because as much as you have the great women in this world that really want to rally around each other, you have those bad apples that just want to bring you down. And you need to develop the tough skin and really, put on your psychologist hat and try to help them in other ways so they can
And
see the light.
absolutely. And I love that you point out, like, more times than not, they've got something else going on that's contributing to this behavior. This is something that came up in the mentorship roundtables at the last annual conference. And we saw it a lot with that older generation that's now coming out, those first pioneers in the industry, because a lot of times the women had to get really hard and take on those overly masculine traits just to feel like they fit in the room. that was sometimes our own doing to ourselves. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. But, for me, yes, it happens. Yeah, maybe there was a little too much flirting on from a male colleague that I did not appreciate. But I think it's important that, it's unfortunate that some of those ladies maybe did not learn how to set the proper boundaries or were fearful that their jobs would be eliminated if
mhm,
they not, if they didn't engage to a certain level or a certain extent. That they had to build up those armors in order to not, to protect themselves, like you said. Um, but Yes, I've come across them all, men and
mhm,
female. But I think I tap into the great role models that I had. It's like school, you had good teachers, you had bad teachers, and you're going to learn, take away the good lessons from the bad teachers and implement that in your life. And it goes also with your colleagues. You're going to have great colleagues, and you're going to have ones with poor behavior, but you're going to really tap into the good and
mhm.
lessons on all of them, so that way you can mold who it is you want to be as you continue in this journey.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Um, one of the things that I've noticed in my years, whether it's been in automotive or coaching or even the ministry work, is that women tend to feel pressure to explain or justify their pauses or pivots or even a step back in their career. What would you want them to understand about the long game of career development?
Yeah, I think that we not be afraid to use your voice,
Mhm.
respectfully, of course. um it especially when you're a mom, juggling family life. If you're a caretaker who has an elderly parent, if you're if you have pets, the juggle is real. And we can't, yeah, like
Yeah.
let's not try to hide it. Being super mom or superwoman doesn't exist. There's times you're going to have to, maybe
Yeah,
not so much balance, but pick and choose your battles. um but never, I follow my intuition very deeply. I have a very keen intuition, and my gut speaks to me a lot. And if I don't feel comfortable doing something, I will try to understand the why behind I'm being asked to do something, um, and try to approach it that way. If it doesn't, if it affects my schedule or my family time, or if can I do it at a different time, understand that yes, you have a job to do and you have a deadline. But if you are if if your children are your priority, talk to your manager, talk to your leader, and perhaps there's another time that you can do the job that's at hand. But be very transparent. I think from the get-go it's important to, um, again, set your boundaries and explain what it is, how much you can contribute to the role, what is, you know, what's the end game, what are the goals that we need to achieve this year, and how you can contribute to them, but never let your voice shine or your light shine. We have so much to contribute towards, and this is like I said, running has helped me a lot because it's slow and steady wins the race. So it's, remember this as the journey that it is. It's not, you know, if you want it to be a career, there's so many areas of this business that you can learn and you can continue to bring in and have your whole big portfolio. And at the end, just tie it up with a nice bow, because not only is it ever evolving, but it's huge. You have not just your
right.
dealerships, you have mergers and acquisitions, you have OEMs, you have parts, you have logistics, you have outbound logistics. There's so much to it. There's so much to it. And that's only,
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's only automotive specific. Then you have your contact centers, you have your platforms. There's a lot in it, and it's one of the most, if the most powerful, corporations, businesses in our country, if not world, that holds a lot of power.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I love that you mentioned just the vastness of the career opportunities. It's one of my goals this year is to explore, because when you think of automotive, everybody thinks sales and the service drive.
It's not.
There's
Yeah.
so much more to that. Even in the dealership itself, there's so much more. So I love that you're um, echoing what I'm trying to communicate to basically the audience is that there's so much here than just selling cars.
My daughter is little sidebar here is a student, a business student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And one of her economics class, they assigned them OEMs to analyze and look at their strategies and their business plans, everything. Like she was given Stellantis as an organization, and this is a university tapping into the automotive industry to really put together business plans and opportunities. So we went off, like I started to explain. I was like, well, you have a lot to talk about with Stellantis for starters. That was a
Right.
great one because there's a lot going on there. But she is a finance and economics major, and this is the assignment that they're giving her, which is, goes back to, it's not only selling cars and servicing cars, it's not only technicians and sales consultants. There's so much to this industry that at its core is based on relationships, not only your
Mm,
consumer relationship when you sell a car, but your OEM and dealer relationship and your vendor relationship and everything else that goes with it. And
absolutely.
it's
I
extremely
think this
profitable.
actually this builds perfectly into my next question for you because I would love for you to share what it means to you when you say that there is space for women in this industry, not just to participate and to fill a seat, but to actually lead and thrive.
Mhm. I think we as women, we're nurturers, and I think we're all leaders.
Mhm.
We, being that we're women, as early on, you tend to always feel like you need to be a leader, whether it's with your siblings or we're helping your mom washing the dishes or taking care of your home or your sibling. You always have that leadership hat. So it's inherent in us and who we are as individuals. So using that to your advantage when you're working at a dealership or you're working at an OEM, specifically at the dealer level, using that to if it's your first position, if it's an entry level position at the dealership, partner yourself. If they don't have a mentor or a group there, then bring it up. Start your own mentorship. Reverse mentorship is also very important. You're just not mentoring up, you're mentoring down. Cross and share
Mhm.
notes. Don't be afraid of asking why, or saying, what, can you re-explain that to me? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Not everybody in the room has the answers, and it's okay to ask questions. It's okay not to have the answers. You're learning,
Mhm.
regardless whether you're doing this for 30 years or you just started and this is month 3. Um, so tap into, by far, asking why. Why do you do this way? Why are marketing dollars tied into the sales unit? Why are you, selling the car to a broker? Ask those questions. Ask the questions that are so important, because that's only it's going to fuel you. It's going to give you more experience. It's going to give you more knowledge. Knowledge is power, and you're going to continue to lead and use your voice and build on what your strengths are. If you're part of a soccer team, remember that how the coach would speak to you. Remember how you would play with your friends in the schoolyard. Teamwork is critical. Hearing each other, different points of views, respect, looking at each other in the eyes, putting down your phone, getting back to those important basics that I think we as leaders that are come more from that school need to also remind and implement those critical points. um, as we develop the future leaders, especially women.
Absolutely. Right? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Again, so many different directions I can go with that, but I do want to be respectful of our time together. So I would love to ask you, Barbara, as you look ahead, what kind of work and impact feel most aligned with who you are now?
For me, I think it's important that I use my experience and use my passion, really, what I love to do in developing future leaders, developing teams, always with a customer centric mindset. I think it's important that we don't lose sight of speaking to customers as we pivot to automotive, to AI, artificial
Mhm.
intelligence. I believe in AI. I think it's a very, very valuable tool, um, to make our jobs easier, but not to replace what we're doing. We can't lose sight of human interaction. Um, I saw an article not too long ago that bookstores are on the rise again, because I think people are missing touching things, touching,
Mm.
feeling, reading, turning pages. I think we're on electronic overload and we need to get back to basics. So for me, where I am in my career, um, I have such an interesting, unique viewpoint coming from OEM, having experience in dealerships, be it the publics and the privates, the large and the small. um, I could tap into all the areas of the business and really support and grow and develop future leaders with the tools that have been given to me, and making sure that they're successful in whatever given position they have. Um, but I think that it's extremely important to define the customer and really understand them. Um, and I love the platforms and the data that's out there to do that. But I think we also have to develop and train. So that's where I am. I want to make sure that I'm supporting, that I'm developing, that I'm coaching, that I'm their biggest cheerleader. Um, but removing the toxic environments that's holding people back as well. It's a very fine line, and there's a balance there. But you know, uh, we spend so much time at work. We need to be able that we're respectful of each other, and develop a culture and an environment that we're all going to want to get up and love to go. Life is too short to get up to go to work that you're driving and dreading it every single minute of your
Yeah.
day, of the drive. You have to really believe in what it is that you're doing, and knowing that you can impact change while you're doing it as well.
Absolutely. So true. If you don't, yeah, getting up to do something you hate every day is just a miserable way to live.
It's miserable. Life is fragile. We all have a story where, that my life has taught me to be extremely empathetic. We don't know what everyone else is going through. We don't know what you're going through, what I'm going through. We walk in our shoes, and sometimes, we all carry our
Hmm.
crosses. So we need to be empathetic about that, and we need to make sure that the environment that we put ourselves in is one that's going to fuel us, mind, body, and soul. And it's all collective, and that it's very dependent on who you surround yourself with. And if you are working in an environment that's not really fueling you and really living up to where you want to be in life, yes, I understand we need to work, we need the money, there's paycheck, there's bills, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not really putting yourself in an environment that's going to fuel your collective.
Absolutely. Right? And we're all going to have bad days, regardless of how
Sure.
much we love our job.
Hmm.
And I really hope people hear that we're talking about something deeper than, oh, it's just a rough day at work. Um, but with that being said, if a woman is listening to this or reads the article that comes from this interview and she's feeling like she herself is in a rebuilding season,
Mhm.
what would you want her to know about her worth and her future?
She matters no matter
Mm,
what, no matter what, no matter where this chapter is, if it's a small chapter, if it's a large chapter, who's to say that a chapter that has 20 pages is more valuable than one that has three? You know, the time you spent isn't equal to your value. There's a reason. Fuel yourself with knowledge, fuel yourself with all the data and the information that's out there. If you find that you're in a standstill, take this time to really tap into reading. There's a lot of free online courses, joining groups like Women in Automotive, surrounding yourself with like-minded individuals who really want to lift and see you grow. um yes, there's going to be days that you're going to be like, why is this happening? um but you, instead of coming with the why me attitude, once you look at what's out there, um there's no need to be jealous of anybody. Use that as a tool, as a mechanism to fuel the fire within you, to get where it is that you truly in your heart know that you need to be. Because I think,
absolutely.
we're all geniuses. I read a quote not too long ago, and I'm probably going to butcher it. If you told a fish to climb up a tree, he'll think for the rest of his life that he's an idiot, that he's stupid. He's not supposed to climb up a tree. He's supposed to be swimming in water in an ocean. We
Mhm.
all have our geniuses. We all have our gifts. So we need to be able to really sit with ourselves and tap into what those gifts are and fuel them. Fuel them with all the information that's at our disposal.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to be yourself.
Do not be afraid to be yourself. We're all individuals who have great gifts, and it's so important to just keep on going. Just keep on going. If you're going through a tough, hard season, this too shall pass. Just keep on going. If you can't walk, then run. But just, you have to keep going. Yeah.
Absolutely. So that was the last of my questions for you, but I wrap up my interviews asking everybody this one question.
Okay.
What is something you wish I would have asked you today, but I didn't?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Um, hmm. Am I involved in mentorship groups? Which is good.
Ooh, are
Yeah.
you involved in mentorship groups?
Yes, and all the companies that I've worked with, there was either a mentorship group already developed, or I was part in creating them. I think it's incredibly important to have mentors, and not be shy to have them either. I know some people feel like, is it okay? Should I be asking for help, or feel shy? But it's important that you surround yourself with strong, people. We're not meant to go through this world alone, and it's important to surround yourself with a tribe. When you look at all these award shows, whether it's the Oscars, the Grammys, doesn't the celebrity, the person who won it, they go up and they thank everybody. They walk through the red
Mhm.
carpet, they talk about their tribe who put them together. We're not meant to go through this world by ourselves. We need to really, have our group, our cheerleaders. Yes, if you're going through a hard time, you need your space, but surround yourself with those people who are going to want to lift you and teach you and help you grow. And that's through, I think, especially in places of work. Mentoring is incredibly important. I am so fortunate to have had incredible mentors in my career, especially right out of college. I think that sets the tone for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
And if it's not just if it's not only if it's not a mentor, strong leaders. I'll leave you with this. Mike Dale was the president of Jaguar Cars North America when I started in 1994, 1995. Um, we were entry level positions on the contact center, taking our calls, the hardest job, most interesting job, because you heard all the complaints that were coming in, learned a lot. But he took time out of every morning to come through the contact center and say good morning, stop in and talk to each one of us. Not only talk about work, how is your family? Who's this picture you have here on your cubicle? So taking the time as a leader to want to know who is on your team will just set the tone forever. So between mentors and really smart leadership, conversation, communication, caring, empathy, I think that's really the blueprint of a successful work environment and the future leaders that you really want to pass the baton on to. Of
Absolutely. Making an employee feel seen
course, of
sometimes
course.
just really it sets wakes them up. It makes it yeah, you'll bring out the best of your people when they know that you see them, you respect them, you value them, that they're real people, not just someone doing a job for you.
Of course, of course. We all want to be seen. And when you're especially at an entry level and you have, the big higher ups taking the time to say, "Hey, how you doing? Good morning. Let me open the door for you. How's your day been? How are those
Mhm.
customers treating you? How's your family?" It's valuable, valuable beyond words.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, Barbara, for sharing your
You.
story with just honesty and grace. Your journey is a powerful reminder that careers are not meant to be linear and that rebuilding and seasons of setbacks, they're not setbacks, but they're that foundation that we get to build on. And the way you've navigated leadership and motherhood, loss, and renewal reflects a depth of resilience and empathy that I am sure strengthens every team you touch. And just thank you. And I'm grateful that you trusted me with this and to tell your story and to share it with the community. And
Thank you
so,
so much for your time. This was fantastic. I look forward to seeing it and to hearing more about the great stories we have out there with the women in automotive and in the industry. It's important that we get our stories out there because we're more alike than we are apart, and we are different. So
absolutely.
it's important
Ab-
that we strengthen each other and grow.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Have an amazing
Th-
afternoon.
Thank you. Likewise. Bye bye.
Bye.